In this project, I'll be using the undocumented Major League Baseball Stats API to gather player statistics by team and by year. To enable the use of the Stats API, I'm going to use facilities from the Requests API to allow for connection to HTTP URLs. It's a module, a Python module. I will also be using the pandas Python module to organize stats into a table, namely a data frame, and then write the table to a CSV file on my computer system. The MLB Stats API is the official and comprehensive source for MLB player, team, game, schedule, and other info. It even has real-time data during the season, so it can be used to give you up-to-the-minute data. This is apparently the same API that MLB uses internally, and they've decided to make it externally accessible. Unaffiliated developers have developed convenience wrappers called Python modules for the Stats API that provide easier interfaces than direct HTTP requests to the Stats API. Namely, these are MLB-Stats API and Python-MLB-Stats API. These are Python modules as well. The MLB Stats API is not publicly documented by MLB. There are several unofficial sources of information out there on the internet, typically enough to perform most tasks with a little digging. With this project, it's really just going to scratch the surface regarding what is available in the Stats API. It's going to be very simple and surface level info. The hope is that I'll spark within you a deeper interest and the impetus to take a deeper dive through the API to develop some really cool shit. In this project, I'm going to write a Python program that'll connect to the MLB Stats API and download hitting stats for a team for a certain year. The code will then take those stats and save them to a CSV file for later reading and analysis. How it's going to work is I'll have the user enter what team and what year they want to get batting stats for, and the program will connect to the Stats API to get the info, and after a little coding magic, it'll produce a CSV file with the hitting stats for that year. Hello and welcome as we dive into the code now. Now you're going to see how this project works. Exciting. So we begin at the top, of course, with a couple of import statements, and as specified in the intro, going to be using requests, the requests module for HTTP requests, and pandas to create the data frame. And a data frame is it's a table of data with rows and columns, kind of like you can envision a spreadsheet. We're going to use that to organize the data into a table. Then we're going to write the table to a CSV file. Pandas is going to handle both of those tasks. So that's why that's there. So the two import statements at the top, importing those two functionalities. Then line 4, we begin with creating a Python dictionary, and the purpose of this dictionary is going to be to map the team names and cities to numeric IDs. And these numeric IDs are called team IDs. And what team IDs are is in the Stats API, internally within MLB, the teams are not referred to by their names. They're actually referred to by these IDs. And I had to do a little bit of digging to get the IDs because, as I said before, the API is undocumented, so you have to kind of dig around a little bit to find the team names. But I was able to find them and I put them into this dictionary. And the thing is going to be is I'm going to use this as a mapping, like I said, kind of as a search, where the user is going to input the name of the team or the city, and then I'll be able to retrieve the team ID from that identification of the name or the city. You'll see it here used pretty soon in the code. So you got that? Yeah, one for each team, whether it's 30 or 32 teams. I think there's 30 teams in the Major League Baseball. Kind of forgetting at the moment. But we're not going to eyeball and count at this time. Getting into lines, let's start on line 37 and come down here. Line 37, we get the input. We ask the user for the team nickname. And actually, you could actually put the city here as well, either the city or the nickname or both, because how it's going to work is I'm going to search the string for the key. So if you put in Mets, it'll grab it. If you put in New York, it would grab it as well. So really either or, even though I just say nickname. For the year, of course, enter the numeric year. And again, what this project is going to do, it's going to get the batting stats for all the players for a certain team for a certain year. So like the 2019 Phillies, the 2024 Nationals, the 1928 Yankees, it would pull all the batting stats for all the hitters. And so I get inputs for the team and the year. Then I create on line 39, I create a string that's called team. It's going to be empty initially. It's actually going to hold the team name. Line 40, I start a loop. What I'm doing here is I'm looping through what was that? I'm looping through the dictionary. I'm looping through the keys of the dictionary. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my search term, whatever the user entered for the team. I'm going to use that to search each key to see if there's a match. Like if they input Washington, I'm going to see if Washington is in the key name. And if it is, then I found a match. And that's what this conditional handles right here. It's what the user entered, looking into the key of the dictionary. If, like I said, if they entered Washington and this key is Washington Nationals, it'll be a match. And if it's a match, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that city and name into the team variable, and I'm going to leave the loop. Of course, because once you find what you're looking for, you don't need to stay in the loop. But I'm always in the loop, ain't I, folks? Yeah. And otherwise, you've given a team name that is unknown. It says try again. It's going to exit the program. I'm not going to do one of those while loops where you're going to keep asking. No, not happening here. Just going to exit. On line 48, what we got is I'm indexing into the dictionary using the team to get the team ID. That's what this is going to do. It's going to retrieve the team ID given the name of the team. Now let's say get ID. It's going to get the ID and put it into team ID. This is because when I look up the team in the Stats API, I must use the team ID. I cannot use the team name. And as far as looking up in the Stats API, that is what's happening on line 51. Line 51, I'm calling a function from the request module called get, and its argument is the URL, the Uniform Resource Locator, that I'm going to use to pull really the team roster from the Stats API. That's what's happening here. And as some of you may know, when you're contacting a web API, all of your queries or all of your requests are going to have the same root URL. And this URL's root is right here, where it's all the stuff up to v1. And then the rest of it is the specific request. So we have the root of the URL and the specific request. And the specific request after the root is I'm using the team ID and I'm getting the team roster, you see full roster for that year. So I'm getting like all the team info for that year. I'm going to use this roster to get all the players, because just like the team IDs, players will have their own numeric IDs as well, and I need to pull those down, those player IDs, numeric IDs, so that I can get stats for the players. So I'm getting the team data to get access to the player IDs. Later I'm going to loop through the player IDs to get statistics, batting statistics for each player. That's how it's going to work. So we got that. And then I have an if statement that says if response status code equals 200. This is regarding the response from my HTTP request. If it's 200, that means as far as the HTTP protocol, it specifies a return of 200 as things are going well. Okay, your request is going to be honored. You're going to get what you're looking for. So if the request is 200 or the code is 200, I'm getting what I'm looking for. So I need to prepare to pull the data down. And on line 54, I want to tell you that typically when you get data via a web API, it's going to be in a format called JSON. And JSON it is a map data structure where data is going to be stored in key value pairs. Now, you may be familiar with these terms from Python dictionaries, because Python dictionaries are maps as well. So it ends up being rather convenient, where if you pull down the data in JSON format, you can use dictionary syntax to pick apart the data. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. So line 54, I grab the data, make it a JSON object with this JSON function, and then put it into this data variable. Line 55, I'm going to index into the JSON data and get the roster. Now, how did I know how to do this? That's a good question. Like, once I get the data, how do I know what the structure is? When dealing with web APIs, what you've got to do is to understand the organization of the data, you're going to have to pull the raw data, really print it out and inspect it yourself to determine, how do I get to the stuff that I want to get to from this data? So I had to do that work earlier, where I just pulled it all down and took a look at how it was organized, and I figured out these are the spots I need to hit. This is what I need to index into to get my needed data. And I found this is the starting point to get the roster from this Stats API team data. So roster is going to hold like the root of the roster data. I'm creating a list called player IDs because I'm going to get the numeric IDs for each player and put them into that list. And here I'm going to, on line 57, I'm looping through the roster, because at this root level, it's got an entry for each player. So I'm going to go player by player, and basically what I'm going to do is get the player's player ID, that numeric ID, so that I can then pull stats from that numeric ID. Now, if I encounter a player who is a pitcher, see, I'm not getting pitcher batting statistics. If you know baseball, you know that pitchers rarely hit well. So I don't care about a pitcher's stats for a certain year of batting, unless they're Shohei Ohtani or Babe Ruth. So I'm omitting all pitchers from my data pool. So I'm saying, really, if the player's position is not a pitcher, then I'm going to grab that player ID. If it is a pitcher, I'm just going to keep it moving and not get it. So at the end of this loop, I'm going to have a list of player IDs, and then I can loop through those player IDs and get stats for the player individually. But first, on line 51, what I do is I create a dictionary that's empty. This dictionary is going to end up being used to hold all the statistics that I download, and then it's going to be used to convert to a data frame and then to a CSV file. So the creation of this dictionary is really the first step in crafting my final data. As stated before, well, it doesn't actually end here, but I'm looping through each player ID. And again, these are numeric IDs. What I'm going to do is, for each player ID, I'm going to craft a separate HTTP request to pull the data. I'm going to pull the batting statistics for that player. So I'm going to loop through. So I'm going to have separate requests. So I may have like 15 requests for 15 different players. So it's going to be a bunch of requests, not just one. I'm looping through each ID, and for each one, I'm going to make a request. And here is that request where it's going to go into player response, that variable, and let me move over here. Here's the root of my, here's the root of my request, and then here's the rest of it, where URL root, and then I'm getting data for the player, hitting stats for the certain season, year. So that's what I'm doing there. Scroll back over. And again, this is happening for each player. So if that player's response, or if that request status code is 200, it means I'm getting my data. And so I put it into JSON format, put it into a variable, and then I proceed to get my statistics, my batting statistics, and put them into the dictionary, my player underscore stats dictionary. On line 72, I create I guess really what it is a dictionary called stats, and I found a place to index into this JSON data where it's the root of all of the statistics for a particular player. And again, I found this through a little bit of digging and inspection that has to be done specifically for each, for each data set that you download via dealing with web APIs. Let's talk about how this dictionary is going to be organized a little bit with this comment right here, where I'm creating a dictionary where each key is going to be a string that's going to be the name of the statistic, and then the value is going to be a list of values, a list where each individual entry in the list is going to correspond to a certain player from the team. So like, let's say index 0 could be Pete Rose, index 1 would be Ty Cobb, index 2 would be Babe Ruth. These guys weren't all on the same team, but you get what I'm saying, where it's like each index would be a specific player. And there's going to be an entry for each stat. The first set of entries, or the first dictionary entry, is going to be for the name. So it'll have the name and then the names of all of them, and it'll have like maybe a number of hits, and then it'll have a list of individual players' hits. That's how it's going to go. And you're going to see how this is organized when we run it, but we won't be running it yet in this video. Getting to line 73, if the entry name is not yet in the dictionary, it's going to create it, and it's going to put the first player's name in there. Again, this is going to be a list of players' names. It'll put the first one in there. If the name entry is already in there, it's going to append the next name. This is like classic dictionary population syntax, where if you got a key, if you're dealing with the key, you create it. Or let me rephrase that. If the key is not in there, you create it. If it's not in, I'm screwing this up. If the key is not already in there, you create it. If it is already in there, you're just going to append to the list that's already there. That's what's going on here. Kind of got backed up a little bit there. Backed up and tongue-tied, right? Live TV, folks. Moving on down here, I'm going to loop through each statistic in the data. And again, stats is going to be in a dictionary. So I'm going to loop through the dictionary. S will be each key. And this is of interest here, where what I noticed in dealing with this data is that there's an entry for an age of each player, and originally I was going to include it, but I noticed that not all of the player entries have an age. So if when I include the age, some players will have an age, some will not, and it created inconsistency in the length of the lists, which really screwed up my data, so I couldn't include it. So what I'm doing here is, if the statistic is not the age, I'm going to add that stat to my dictionary. If it is the age, I'm going to omit it because, again, like I said, the age is inconsistent, or the inclusion of the age is inconsistent. And this is kind of like it's kind of like what happens up here, where if the key for the stat is not already in the dictionary, it puts it in there and makes the first entry. If it is already there, it's going to append to it. A lot going on here, folks. Then we have an else down here. If this particular player, if you failed to get their stats, it's going to print as such. This is for debugging. This is as well, so we can omit those from the discussion. These two lines are the usage of the pandas module, the Python pandas module. It's only used 2 lines here, but the usage is very important, where on line 87, what we're doing is I'm creating a data frame, a table from my dictionary. After the loop up here, player stats is going to be populated with all the batting stats in a Python dictionary. Take the Python dictionary, convert it to a data frame, and there you go, using pandas. And then on line 89, what I'm doing is I'm converting that data frame to a CSV file, comma separated values. And both of these things are really easy to do in pandas, so that's why I'm using this module. And that's really it, folks. And what this produces, let's take the cake out of the oven. What it produces is right here, where we have this is a CSV file viewed in a free version of Excel, basically. And we've got player names, we've got different stats. And these have all been pulled down via the MLB Stats API. So there it is, folks, that little script that I just showed you pulled this data. But yeah, there is the code, and in the next little video we will do a test run of the code, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the dictionary format that I'm using, that I end up converting into a data frame and then to a CSV. Stay tuned. Alright, now as the graphic just said, we are going to run this code and see what we get. Well, you already know what we get, because I told you we're going to get a CSV file of the hitting stats for a certain year, but you're going to see an actual run of the code, and I'll be able to explain a little bit more about what this thing does. And also, if you want this code, you can hit me up for the code. I don't have an avenue to post it yet, but you could just write to me, text me, or comment if you want the code, if you've made it this far in the video. Anyway, let's run it. And I want to point out a couple of things as I run it. What's going to happen? Give me a second for my pointer to come up. I'm actually going to do, I'm going to do two kind of debug printings, as well as outputting it to a CSV. I'm going to print the dictionary. I'm going to abbreviate it dict here. I'm going to print the dictionary because I want to show you the format of the dictionary of player stats, because I explained that in the last little bit, but probably pretty hard to understand in an abstract manner. So I'm going to show you what the dictionary ends up looking like. And then the data frame is going to print out. And then, of course, the CSV is going to be created. So I'm going to show you these three things once I run the code: the dictionary, the data frame, and then the eventual CSV file. So let's go. Exciting times. So I'm here in PyCharm. I'm going to go to the top right of the screen and hit the run button, and my terminal should come up down below. Eventually. There's the terminal. A little bit of slowness here because I haven't run anything in PyCharm today. And okay, enter the team nickname. Let's see. I'm a Orioles and Nationals fan, so I'll do the Orioles. And let's the year. Let's do 1996. So actually 97. That was an interesting year for the Orioles, where they went wire to wire, as they say. First place every day of the season. They lost in the playoffs, but that was a great Orioles team. I'll hit enter here. It's going to connect to the Stats API, and it does its printouts, and it created the CSV file I can see on my other screen. So now, let us take a look at the output here. What I want to really highlight first is this right here. This is the dictionary that got created. Or not, it got created in this program, but it's printed out from this line right here, line 86. This is the dictionary, and I want to show you the format here because, like I said, it was kind of hard to understand when I just spoke it in an abstract manner without you seeing an actual visual. So here, my friends, is the visual where, see, it's a dictionary, and it's a dictionary with the keys will be stats. The values are going to be a list of stats where the index corresponds to a certain player. The first actual stat is name, which, it's not really a stat, but it's necessary information to identify a player. So we have the name here, which is a key, and the value here, which is the list of names. And these are the names of the players on the team. And you see it's a list beginning with that bracket. That's the first key value pair. Now let's dive a little bit over to the right to see the other key value pairs. So that's the names. And then we have games played here. This is the first actual stat, games played, and yeah, this is the key, string key. And you got the value over here, which, as I said, is a list. Now, this is what I was trying to explain earlier, where each element, each index is going to be for a certain player. And so a player will occupy a certain index, like index 0 is a certain player. Index 1 is a certain player, and these would be the games played for that player. We just got to look back to see which player it is, like index 0 and index 1. So we'll do that right now. See, index 0, index 1. Let's go back and look at the names at index 0 and index 1. And here we see Roberto Alomar and Brady Anderson. Alomar is index 0, Anderson is index 1. So when we go to games played, we see that Alomar played 112, Anderson played 151 games there. And actually, interestingly, you see like a full season is 162 games. Alomar played quite a bit less than that because he was suspended, I believe, the first 5 or 10 games of the season for spitting on an umpire, famously, I think in 1996. So it wasn't that many games. It wasn't like 40 games or whatever, but he was suspended, and that reduces games total. Little side note for you older baseball fans there. That's games played. We'll look at another stat here. Ground outs, where we have the key and then the value where each one will correspond to a player. So that's how the dictionary is laid out. And then this dictionary gets converted to the data frame, and then the data frame is converted to a CSV file. Let's look at the data frame. The data frame is here, where we've taken the dictionary above and got it in this cool data frame, where, of course, like I said, it's a table. And when you print out a data frame in PyCharm, it's gonna abbreviate. So it's got the name, first column, games played, second column. You see how Alomar and Anderson line up, but then you have the dots. It's kind of like a yada 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 in Seinfeld, where these are the rest of the stats, but they're just not. It's not going to show a full row of 10 stats. It's going to show the first couple and the last couple, and that's it. It's going to give you the gist. So that's the data frame in an abbreviated manner. Let me see that, and it tells you 22 rows, 34 columns to give you a little synopsis of the size of your table. So they're not going to print all 34 columns here, but that's the data frame. And now I'm going to show you the CSV file, because that's really the eventual goal here, putting this into a CSV. So I'll drag over my project folder where I have all this stuff, and the things will output. So we see here, this is the file that was just created, and 97 Baltimore Orioles, that's how the file name gets put there. And let's run it. Not run it, but let's open it. Got running on the brain. If it will open. Here is that CSV file, now opened in what you could call a free Excel clone, which is LibreOffice, which is a great office suite, by the way, completely free. But here we have our stats, and this is the eventual output of the Python code. And I think it's pretty cool, where you can pull up stats for a team, hitting stats for a particular year, and do you have some non-traditional stats like ground outs and the air outs? You don't always see those, and they calculate the batting average and calculate some of these derived stats like OPS and OBP. So that's cool. And yeah, using the code that I showed you, you can pull up hitting stats for any team, any year, pretty much in the history of a Major League Baseball. Well, that's it, folks. This is how this thing works. And with that, this is done.